Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. In the last lesson, we demonstrated how you can expose this information to the editor after writing it like this. The advantage of this is that it allows people using your plugin or project to intuitively know what to write in this field. For example, if you need to configure some keys, right? For instance, let's call this key algon APPID. Right, we'll give it a long. First, give it a long. And this is again APA. We'll give it a long first. Then this information can actually be used. Next, let's talk about how to read this at the C++ level. Actually, at the C++ level, we can write it in begin play, or we can write another method. So this method we call a string called GetMyApp. Okay, alright, this method. Then we write it as ufunc. This we do in boot co-edit and then catergraph next. But we can also make it co-editor. But there's no need to make it co-editor here. Okay, then how do we do this here? Actually, just use this method. Here we obviously we need to include the header file. Well, we do it this way, including after including the same file, we can come in, then we can directly call the static method. But you can call it direct. Calling it this way is also perfectly fine. But personally, I prefer calling it this way. You can also write it more formally. That's fine too. Then we need to use it to receive. Okay, we'll receive it here. We'll just use this name. But if you actually want to, this method, actually, if you want to write it more rigorously, you need to write it like this. That is, you need to judge accordingly, and then give a Boolean value indicating whether it succeeded. Only write it after it succeeds. Then let's write it more rigorously for everyone. Okay, then we need to change the signature. Here we give a Boolean, and here we should give a fstream syntax like this. Out my app. And then we change the signature. And here we won't use coable. Let's use Bob here. This way, it becomes a green node in Blueprint. If it exists, then we assign this value here. Right. This way we can listen to whether we have obtained this configuration as empty. This is the standard writing style. If not, we directly return. Okay, then here we give it a long to avoid it getting something strange. But here we must check. Many Blueprint colleagues actually do not check this BOS meaning, they just use it regardless of whether it succeeds. This is also understandable, maybe some designers. Everyone please understand. Okay, good. Here we can actually write another method. Here we don't need our void. Set my app. Then note that we don't need it here. We can write it like this. Note the difference between these two writing styles. I've already emphasized this basic knowledge earlier. Okay, good. So here, it's very simple. We'll just get it directly. To be precise, we should still check if the pointer is not null. But actually, there's no need to check it here. Normally, you shouldn't modify it like this. Normally, you should write a set method. That means you still need to write a set method inside your own class. We didn't write the set method, but you should know in your mind that the engine prefers to write it this way. Okay, after writing it like this, we go to our blueprint to do a simple test. But there is a problem here. We will demonstrate what this potential problem is in a moment. Okay, we need to open our project here. Not bad. Then we still create a blueprint class in this level. This is the config here. Okay. Create a blueprint class. We give it a VP. Then we place it in this position. After placing it here, we drag it to extend it. We haven't opened this level yet. Hey, was my previous lesson not saved? Let me find it. Check the observation from the previous lesson. If it hasn't been saved, I need to save it. Let's see if it has moved. It's been placed in the wrong position. Just move it. This position. Okay, remember to fix it. We set the camera. In the previous version, when you fixed the reset camera, it was actually silent. Now it's better. It has this prompt. Then here, we'll do a simple setup. Let's still use 1 and 2. Call 1 and then call 2. Okay, we found that it is this reference. Then here we have a get. Milo. Okay, right? Actually, we don't need to win this again. Or, to be precise, because some Blueprint users might directly take this and use it. You should understand what I mean. They just use it without this branch for checking. If I get it like this, it will fail and cause a serious error. Or maybe they modified someone else's. Okay, then, for this part, let's add a set to apply. Let's keep the set simple. We'll give it 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's test it. We can take a look now. What its default value is. Balance W too long. Right. Then press 1. Then press 2. Then we go and access 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But pay attention here. You see here. It is 250 tao 0 pao tai tao down. But deliberately observe this position. What we need to observe is this project. Here. You can see. You will notice. That's not right. Something is off here. How come this III file is missing? This is not right. You can see. Because you will notice that actually we are here. This place has config written in it. But this one doesn't. Now let's close this project. Right now, this place is actually working fine. You can see this ini file sometimes needs to be reopened, right? Then we use it again. For example, we can't write it directly now. If we write it directly, it will appear. I can see. We access it again. No problem at all. But actually, you see this ini is not there. This might be a bit confusing here. You might be confused by what I said, but it doesn't matter. I'm just showing you. This is an error under a rather extreme situation. Let's stay here. Okay. Let's hit enter. Did you notice? You see what I mean, right? So for the correct way to write it, we also, then actually, you close the project here. We'll open it again, wait for it. After it finishes, we'll open it again. You will find that it is also not there, right? Let's start it now. Because, obviously, we set our key to 12, 3, 4, 5, 6 earlier. We try to preserve the original state for everyone. That way you will be able to get the point. There is no lawn, right? That's not correct. So what is the correct way to do it? Actually, it's very simple, because we showed you in the last lesson. So here, if you modify this value, you need to call a method called SaveConfig. Okay, so after you call it, after this method, it will save this config information. Now let's try again. We really need to turn this off because it may not be the latest. You see, it's still not there, right? Okay, and now we definitely don't have it now either. No problem at all. And now we go over there. There is a 0 bug here. Obviously this 0 bug here is because I opened the wrong map. Our previous map, the previous map had a adjusted error bug issue. Weren't we testing everyone in the previous chapter? That is, loading the dump file. There's this place where I forgot to change the touch map, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect anything. Here we open the map. Let's see if we write it again. That's right. At this point, let's go check it. It still doesn't have it, because this part of ours is wrong. I'll take a look in a moment. Here you can see. It's equivalent to this place, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It didn't echo back into this ini file. See? Actually, this is also very simple because it hasn't been changed. In fact, you just need to add one more modify. This is UE's underlying mechanism. As for this knowledge, it comes relatively later, but it is very important. If you watch Teacher Dazao's video, it will be explained. That is, it has some package, some settings. Now we need to adjust it here. See, here we adjust a modify, mark it as a chapter. Okay, you see, that is, it has already been modified. Then you need to let the engine know about it. Look here. You can see that this object will be modified. And this part means, if necessary, then it will save it. Actually, the key point here is, sometimes when we make editor tools, you will find that you have made a bunch of modifications. That is, it works fine when you open it, but the next time you open the project, it doesn't work properly. The same asset file. It's also very simple. The reason is that you did not mark it as dirty. Okay, pay attention. Let me reproduce this for everyone once more. It's normal here. It's not here either. Now let's do this. Let's first read the modification. Let's read it again. Okay. At this point, we haven't closed the editor. But I can already see that here. The text here has already been modified. Then let's close it. Let's save it. Let's check again. If it's still not there, let's close it again. Let's observe this value again. It still doesn't have it. Let's see why it's actually wrong. Let's set a breakpoint here. Then everyone will know why it's wrong. We can ignore this part. It's just like this. Let's execute here. Then after we enter, you will find that here, there is a Fairlamp here. Here, there is no BTalt here. It is SaveConfig.aus editor symbolini. Then you will find that there is actually no such file SaveConfig. It does not have this file. Actually, we shouldn't write it this way. For this, we'll paste the ini file here. Then we just need to perform a slight operation. We can directly change this text here, but we shouldn't do that. Here, you will notice that it requires a path to be passed in. Right, we can see its default parameter. What is the first one? The first one is this cpg.config. We'll paste it over. Then the second one requires a path to be passed in. We'll write a path ourselves. Yeah, we give an factual. This configuration file path. Then we give a config. Then we should write this path like this. FPS project config get the config path of our current project. Then we just splice this character in like that. Splice these two files in. Then what we need to do at this point is convert a relative path to an absolute path. After we do that, we can just pass this path in. Now let's test to see if it can run through normally. Then now let's read this value. Let's start it first. Then we go in. Then after we come in, this value becomes the value we specified. Let's check it again. Okay? Then now let's look at this value. See, it's there now. But this way of writing is definitely unreasonable and incorrect. Writing it like this is definitely wrong. Why is that? Actually, the correct way to do it should be written like this. We can set a breakpoint here. We mainly look at this function, this post-header. We mainly look at this dword 13. We come in, you can see dword 13. It has a post editor here, change property. Actually, when you modify it in this blueprint, it should fall to this place. Let's try it first. Let's close it first. Then here, we separate. We only need to change our ID. We change it to BB. Let's backtest it. It's in. Actually, you need to simulate it. For this operation, you should construct the parameters like this. You'll see it's this. This is reflection. This property is a reflection. That is, what was your previous value and what is the subsequent value? Then you construct it in this way and manually activate this delegate. Then fill in these parameters. This way, you can achieve the same effect as the blueprint editors. Parameter effect. Here we took a bridge. Then we let it refresh. Directly save it to this. Save it to this file. So this is different implementation approaches. And what we need to notice, this thing might, if you write it like this, after packaging, it may not necessarily achieve the effect you want because the Unreal Editor, the difference between before and after packaging is quite significant. So in this lesson, we will explain it to you. So if you are at the C++ level, how to access this DL percelting and then modify the value inside it. And then save this. It seems the usability of the code here is debatable. You just need to know that such a thing exists. Then let me make a note for everyone. Generally, you should not modify this value because you will find out why I wrote it this way. Visible adding 1 is we don't want to change it. We want to hardcode it at the C++ level. Or, in this case, just don't use C++ code to modify this thing, because if you keep changing this value back and forth, this will cause a problem. That is to say, this class is not designed that way. It is not meant to be used like that. You only need to read it at the C++ level. You only need to modify it in Blueprint. 也近时导们粘的太, you simply do not expose them. Just hardcode them directly at the code level. Okay, this part we talked about is a bit convoluted. Let's stop here. Thank you everyone.